Hey, Michael, do you want to know an Amy Schumer bit, which she wrote but won't make it into the Oscars telecast because, of course, she's going to be hosting?
Well, yeah, actually, I really do.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, you could also tell me everything that will make it into the Oscars telecast because I won't watch it.
Oh, no, you've got to watch it, Michael. What are
Yeah,
you
okay,
talking
because
about?
I am serious about this. Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, exactly. My husband is going down on me, or as he calls it, Squid Game. Okay. I really
She's
didn't
so
expect...
funny.
Was that a genuine laugh?
To be fair, the thing about Amy Schumer's shock humor is when it's just in isolation, it does kind of shock me enough to elicit a laugh. The main reason I would say I don't find Amy Schumer funny is when it's just a whole barrage of her vagina stuff.
It's interesting that you say that because that's literally the only thing that she does. So she also adds, so he's in my nightmare alley as well, which is another movie. So that's great. Instead, she says she's likely to take a couple risks. Wow. Maybe not making jokes about her vagina. And I'm looking at the comments now. Jokes about my vagina. Steal a joke. Amy Schumer sweating. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hate towards
a
Amy
lot of
Schumer.
Misogyny. Can I say that?
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Yes. I think. Yeah. Look, Amy Schumer. Somebody says I never understood the hate against her, but this is terrible.
Yeah, it's changed their mind.
Yeah, I know. But, hey, look, I mean, the Oscars is they fuck up every year. Having Amy Schumer hosting is going to continue in that tradition. So I'm looking forward to it. And, I'm also looking forward to, I don't know, any other film stuff going on. Not really, no. The fucking new stills from Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness were released. And they look like shit.
Yeah. My wife is blowing me, or as I like to call it, meeting Doctor Strange. It's my penis.
Yes. No, I mean, to be fair, it's not worse than Schumer's. So maybe you'll be hosting the Oscars next year.
Soon. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are really just coming kind of towards the end of our Oscar extravaganza. The Oscars are fast approaching, as you could tell from our thematically relevant cold open. And so we're making sure we've got all of those Best Pictures watched, because we obviously need to make sure we've watched and reviewed every single one of them before the actual Oscar night. That's definitely what we're going to do. But in that spirit, we are reviewing one of the films which was nominated, which was Mank. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Mank?
Yeah, certainly, Michael. Do you want to do that again in an old-timey voice?
Hello, two reviewers surrounded by they're going to be reviewing this thing, and after a lifetime of being rich and famous from their life reviewing movies, they've now just become washed up and alone, and they just sit in their computers and talk about these films. What a tragedy. Truly a life of regret. I don't know.
Okay. Right, so anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Adam West in Family Guy talks through a tube and he's like, "Do I sound like I'm on old-time radio?" But now I just think of Bane.
Right, so I'll try and do that for the intro. So,
yeah.
Mank is a 2020 American black and white biographical drama film. I can't really do the voice. I can't really.
No, yeah. To be fair, I mean, it's pretty. It's not. I tell you here. I mean, I guess it's like Mike Stoklasser does it sometimes. Like, I got a scoop for you here, right here, Space Cop.
Yeah, the drama film about screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz and his development of the screenplay for Citizen Kane. It was directed by David Fincher. Screenplay by Jack Fincher. Starring
nepotism much?
Starring Gary Oldman. I'm sorry. Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, Arliss Howard, Tom Pelphrey, and Charles Dance. That's a weird name. Pelphrey. That's probably more accurate. So, Michael, this movie was released on November the 13th, 2020 in the United States on Netflix, and I assume all over the world as well.
Yes.
And can you tell me what the budget was for Mank?
Well, I know it had a lot of actors in it, so that would imply the number of actors who are quite famous would suggest a high budget. I don't know that it would like reach kind of the heights of blockbuster budgets, but I mean, I don't feel like I should go lower than, say, it's hard to say, but I don't feel like I should go lower than 30 million, but I'm not saying I'm going 30 million. I feel like I shouldn't go lower than that.
Come on, Michael, have a guess. Come on.
Yeah, okay. I'm going for 45 million.
Didn't you just say you were going to go lower than 30?
No. So I said I didn't think I should go lower. I thought,
well,
so I was off.
You nearly blew it. I'm sorry, I thought you were saying I'm going to go a bit lower than 30. I was like, he's going to get it because it's 25.
Oh no! Okay.
you almost blew it.
I just narrowly avoided it. Good.
Yeah. So of course, Michael, this movie was released on Netflix. It wasn't released at cinemas, apart from the specification. Well, if to qualify for the Academy Awards, it needs to be released at a cinema in the Los Angeles area. To make sure it can.
Yeah.
It can qualify, so it did. So we do have some box office receipts, and it is very much like the other two Oscar movies that we have reviewed so far, not Judas and the Black Messiah, like The Sound of Metal and The Trial of the Chicago 7.
And they were like, were they both below $1 million?
They were, yes.
Okay, so I guess based on that, the smart thing to do would be to go for like 500,000.
The thing is, Michael,
they were even lower than that. They were
have
like
a really bad memory, don't you?
They were like 100,000.
Yeah, exactly. So Trial of the Chicago 7. There's a lot of movies that start with Trial of the... Wow. Yeah. Who would have thought, eh?
I was actually... after I said 500,000, I was thinking, I should have gone for 400,000 because it's not going to get like...
So the Trial of the Chicago 7, as we said, was 115,000.
Okay.
And now we're going to look at The Sound of Metal. Let's see what Sound of Metal was. Because, of course, Sound of Metal was also on Amazon Prime. Trial of the Chicago 7 was Netflix. Sound of Metal was 500,000. Okay.
Oh, okay. So yeah, all right. I wouldn't have been so. I'll be interested because I was thinking I should have gone for 400,000. So if Mank is over 200,000,
Mank's box office. So this may be the difference. Films released on Amazon Prime and released on Netflix, because the films are indeed released on Netflix because it's probably the more popular streaming service compared to Amazon Prime.
Fewer people see it at the cinema.
Exactly. So the box office for Mank was startlingly similar to the box office for Trial of the Chicago 7. 122,000 box office, which is just 7,000 more than what Trial of the Chicago 7 got.
So I'd have had to go lower than 300,000 in order to get it. Yeah.
So that is another O. You have not gone under yet for the fucking thing we're doing. Yeah, for the box office, you have gone over every time. And out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 movies we have reviewed this year. You have gone over the or more than double the box office amount 5 times.
Okay, so I'm still okay. Yeah, I'm still. This was bad, but prior to now I was doing all right though. Out of 10, I'd only done it 4 times.
Yeah, I know, the ratio just keeps getting worse. So Michael, Mank, did you like this movie?
When I was going into it, I was a bit worried because I was thinking to myself, like, is this just going to be a case of like, they're like, oh, it's a really good film, Citizen Kane, like a famous film, and therefore you gotta make a movie about it. And, I was kind of thinking to myself, is it going to be the case at the end of it, I'm only thinking, it's just like a film that doesn't really have much to recommend it, apart from it's about Citizen Kane, and isn't Citizen Kane a good movie? And I would say, on balance, it did an okay job at kind of going beyond that. I'm talking mostly in terms of kind of like the plot, I think the kind of intrigue around kind of the politics of the 1930s was good. The stylistic stuff was interesting, but for me, I would say I did like it, but compared to, I think, like other biopics, I just don't think this film quite delivered as much. And I do feel like that was kind of because it was like, well, you got to tell the story about Citizen Kane. I don't know. But yeah, I did like it, but I just when I think about, like, kind of, for example, The Aviator about Howard Hughes, which is also about somebody who made movies during, like, the golden age of cinema, is a better film, I would argue, because I feel like you just get to know the character a bit more. I don't know, something about this. Not quite sure I loved it, but I did like it.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I feel like overall, it wasn't awful. And there was some fun moments, and I appreciate it.
You know what, actually, sorry, I was just going to say, I kind of actually, this is just a fun fact, just to interrupt you because I'm a hero.
Yeah, thanks for interrupting me.
Just to interrupt you because I'm a misogynist. Basically, sometimes I preemptively write categories And I admittedly wrote this category based on my memory of having watched the film like a year ago in advance of the last year's Oscars. And I think I was wrong about this, but I wrote down Pablo Picasso, he won't amount to anything. And the reason why is because I feel like the first time I watched this film, I don't know why, because this didn't actually happen as much, and I was worried it would happen, I guess, and I'd kind of forgotten that it didn't happen as much as, well, didn't really happen at all. But like, so obviously I'm talking about in Titanic, where you have that kind of like, a little bit of like a cheesy line about like, oh, Pablo Picasso won't amount to anything. I was kind of thinking to myself, like, I wonder if this film's going to be like full of that. And it wasn't so bad, except for the bit where the person said the Wizard of Oz is going to sink that studio.
Oh, yeah. To be fair, that was more relevant than the Picasso line, because Picasso is just weird for this guy to, he won't amount to anything when you haven't heard of him. If you're in the bit, it's what people probably said and definitely did say about the Titanic. So I can imagine, the actual movie, the Titanic. So I can imagine. I
mean, Wizard of Oz was obviously pretty I guess it was like a technological nightmare, because like they're introducing like Technicolor for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So that must have been difficult, and it must have been like a challenge. And I bet there was people thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be a failure. I don't think it's as bad as the fucking Picasso one.
But yeah, the point is, I was like, I don't know why, I was kind of like going into it, I was almost like worried they'd have like a few like wink wink nudge nudge, like people being like, oh, Citizen Kane, that won't be a good film at all. And it's like, well, we know it is.
They did say something about Hitler to that effect, but we'll get onto that later.
I did see that, but yes. I didn't quite count that because it wasn't about films.
If I could say my opinion on the movie now.
Oh yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so I think it, again, like I said, it was okay. It had some really good moments, really fun moments that were interesting, but overall, it just really, it didn't really capture my imagination, and I feel like you have to be heavily invested in, I guess, or knowing what happened in 1930s Hollywood to really appreciate this movie. Now, of course, we know bits and pieces because, of course, we reviewed Citizen Kane last year.
Yes.
And I believe we went through parts of the controversy surrounding it, concerning William Randolph Hearst and his thoughts on the movie, trying to get it shut down. And, of course, the conflict between Herman J. Mankiewicz and, indeed, his fucking Orson Welles. I don't know why I forgot Orson Welles' name. Pretty famous guy. But, yeah, so overall... what a great name, by the way, Orson Welles. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's actually the name of Bree's husband in Desperate Housewives.
What, Orson?
Yeah, Orson Hodge.
Is he cool?
He killed somebody with his car.
No, Hodge is an awful surname.
Yeah, well, her surname's Vanderkamp, but her previous husband, who died from a heart attack after he was poisoned by their chemist who had a crush on Bree, was called Rex Vanderkamp, which I think is pretty... Did
you watch Desperate Housewives with your fiancé?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that makes sense.
I swear that's why. But no, yeah. Anyway, the important thing is, Rex Vanderkamp, I think, is a pretty cool name.
Right, great. So anyway, Mank. Firstly, of course, Michael, why we're reviewing Mank is because it was nominated for Best Picture last year at the Academy Awards in 2021. It earned. Do you know how many nominations it earned, by the way?
5.
10.
Oh.
Yeah.
I went under half. Yeah.
Almost another more than double.
Oh, yeah.
Or under whatever the fuck. Anyway, so yeah, the film earned a leading 10 nominations at the 93rd Academy Awards. It was leading, which you might expect with 10, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Oldman, and Best Supporting Actress, Seyfried. Of course, it won for Best Production Design and Best Cinematography, but didn't get any of the acting or screenplay awards, which is, of course, ironic. In some ways, that what it won for was production design and cinematography.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what was obviously Citizen Kane won 1 Oscar, which was for best screenplay. Yeah. And how many nominations did it pick up? Again, 11 or 10, something like that.
I thought it was 9 actually, which would be interesting because that means that this film beat it.
It also means it missed out on 8, just like this movie.
Oh yeah, that is crazy. So this film won 2 Oscars.
Yeah, that's what I said. It won Best Production Design and Best Cinematography.
Sorry, duh. Yes.
Yeah, and obviously Supporting Actress Seyfried, Best Actor Oldman. God, Best Actor was really stacked last year, wasn't it? Best Actor was really stacked. Best Supporting Actress Seyfried. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, we'll get into the performances in a bit. And yeah, obviously this was up for Best Picture. Didn't win it, of course. But yeah, we're reviewing it all the same. So let's get into Mank, Michael. Let's get into that right away. So, the concept for this movie, of course, it's about Herman J. Mankiewicz, and he developed the movie Citizen Kane, or as this movie portrays, he basically wrote the whole thing. and of course it goes through the history of it, not just of Citizen Kane, but Hollywood itself. Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of this guy, Herman J. Mankiewicz. And a crucial aspect of this movie is you need to see Citizen Kane to understand anything. Like I said before, of course, you can only really appreciate this movie if you're interested in the old history of Hollywood, like the super old history. This is like as early as it is, really, in the 1930s. The Academy Awards started in 1929, I believe.
Yes.
So literally, just at the start of the whole movie making business. So you need to, of course, to fully appreciate this movie, you need to love the history, but to just understand the movie on any level, you need to see Citizen Kane, because I can't imagine someone not having watched Citizen Kane wondering what was going on throughout this movie. What do you think, Michael?
No, yeah, definitely. And I think obviously you could say, I mean, to some extent, you could argue in certain contexts that's kind of like relevant to the quality of the film. Like, I mean, it's not like vital, but I think you can sometimes say that like a good way to say that a film's good, if that film is about a film, is, well, can you enjoy it? Regardless of whether or not you've seen the film that's about. Obviously, I know, for example, there's Ed Wood, which is about like the film director Ed Wood, and I have not seen it. I'm not gonna lie, I probably should see it at some point. But apparently, lots of people enjoy that film, and I think lots of people probably haven't seen any film by Ed Wood. So like that would be just an obvious example. And obviously, I think this film, definitely falls short of that mark. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like what we had this before with, what was that movie?
Disaster Artist.
Yeah, Disaster Artist.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Yeah, well, you said, I remember, that your parents watched it with you.
Yes.
And they still liked it, even though they hadn't seen The Room.
Yeah, in fact, I actually think maybe it's possible that they liked it more, maybe because they didn't have like an expectation, because I know you were kind of thinking like you wanted it to be a bit more like, a bit more kind of referential, I guess, and that like obviously you really liked The Room and you thought like, it didn't really capitalize on kind of how insane the production of The Room could be. I think that's maybe fairly representing your position. But yeah, I think actually it's possible that, if you go into that film just like looking at it as like this kind of crazy relationship between, Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau, it actually does quite a good job at kind of communicating that crazy relationship, regardless of whether or not you've seen the film, which is, my take.
Yes. And, well, that's why I think that movie, it was like, I thought it was going to be primarily, I guess Greg Sestero took more of a role in that because I think the movie was based off the book he wrote.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. But yeah, with that movie, I was always like, it should be more about the insanity of the Room, because that's the whole reason why he produced this movie. I don't really care what the fuck Greg Sestero has to say on things like that. So no offense to Greg Sestero, but that was my position with this one. It's it's kind of like, if I was interested in the 1930s in Hollywood, I'd love this and I'd like this because it goes into so much detail, and of course with Citizen Kane and all that, you need to see Citizen Kane, and I guess there is like a balance to be had with how in depth you go and how much you appreciate what actually happened, and helping new viewers who haven't seen the movie. But again, this movie just operates off the premise that if you haven't seen Citizen Kane, this movie is pointless, and I respect that. I think that's absolutely fine to have that, because again, it's one of the greatest movies ever. So yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah. But obviously, as you already said, we're not exactly mad for 1930s and 1940s Hollywood.
Yes, so indeed.
Presents a limitation there.
So Mank was announced in July 2019 when David Fincher said he would direct the film, with Gary Oldman set to star. The screenplay was written by Fincher's father, Jack Fincher, prior to his death in 2003. So it was originally going to be Fincher's follow-up film to The Game in 1997, with who was set to star as Herman J. Mankiewicz, Michael?
Gary Oldman still, because he was big back then.
But no, it wasn't Oldman.
Charles Dance. That'd be funny, because he was also around back then. I mean, I assume it's obviously going to be an interesting answer.
It's a famous actor.
Tom Cruise.
No.
Will Smith.
No.
Like a kind of, pretty famous 1990s kind of actor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's lots of famous actors. Like, for some reason I was thinking, like, I'm kind of thinking about visual similarity, and I was almost thinking, like, Michael Keaton.
Oh, no, not Michael Keaton, no. I'll just tell you. I'll give you one more guess. One best actor in the 2000 Academy Awards for a movie he appeared in 1999.
Oh, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, okay, that's funny.
And Jodie Foster. was set to star, but it never came to fruition
Yeah.
due to Fincher's insistence on shooting in black and white.
Mankiewicz, more like Wanker Kid. That's right. Kevin Spacey just got roasted.
But the thing is, Kevin Spacey wasn't wanking them off; they were wanking him off.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Get
that
wanked by a kid.
Yeah, exactly. But so obviously it's in black and white, this movie. So hey, Jack Fincher didn't succeed, but his son David Fincher did. Manages to get it in black and white, and I guess it had to be in black and white, right? This movie really, with how it wouldn't work in color. It really wouldn't.
No, yeah, I was actually thinking, and this is a tiny bit, some might say controversial. I was thinking like, I wonder if they could have kind of like done a thing where like they made the flashbacks look visually different from the forward things, because I know they obviously communicate the flashbacks plenty well by like having the little kind of script thing.
Yeah, so
but like I was kind of just casually thinking, like, I wonder, oh, by the way, actually, this would be a good opportunity, seeing as we're mentioning the fact it was filmed in black and white, that they also did that crazy little like 1940s style opening credits. Who do they think they are? Tarantino doing opening credits?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's fun. So they can be Tarantino all they like, even though it wasn't him. But yeah, obviously, just back to the David Fincher. It must be good for him to make the movie that his father wanted to make. Must be a nice moment for him.
Yeah, you know what? I bet it is. And you like to see these directors get to finally do their passion projects.
So anyway, let's get into nitpicks now, Michael, because we didn't actually normally we do nitpicks before.
You are right.
The plot, but we didn't because we kind of forgot. How many have you got?
Well, you know what? I have like one kind of. It's like a thing which is in the film, which I'm aware like the film's supposed to be based on reality, and therefore maybe this is either a historical accuracy thing. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. You ready for this? I find it weird that Orson Welles wasn't more actively involved with the screenwriting. Now I know there's a whole thing later.
Where that's the whole point of the movie.
No, but okay. Here's the thing. Like, I know that there's a whole thing about he didn't his screenwriting credit was illegitimate, but I just find it very, very like weird that like they've got this whole thing where it's like, oh man, you got to get the script done in time, and it's like it seems to me like Orson Welles is pretty casual about this script because he's like only checking in like pretty casually, and I'm just like, I mean, admittedly,
what is your point here?
Well, I guess my point is just that like when that was happening, I was just like, I find it really hard to believe that there's actually an issue with like him needing to meet this deadline when Orson Welles is apparently so chill. He's not even like checking in. He's not like, hey, how's the script going? It's like, yeah, but like, okay, the thing is like he's checking in, but like he's not like asking like, hey, how much you done? Okay, so here's the thing. So I've got this guy who I do a podcast with, maybe you know him, and he'll like always like just throughout the week be like, hey, how have you done with editing this podcast? How are you doing with that? Have you done the audio adjustments yet? And all that kind of stuff. And it like, keeps me going. And I'm just thinking that's really what Orson Welles should be doing.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if Herman J. Mankiewicz gave him a script which had the words in the wrong order and was like back to front and in French, then maybe you'd have a point. But that hadn't happened yet to Herman J. Mankiewicz, and
so he trusted him.
So he trusted him. So, but yeah, I do get your point. I guess maybe that's how he just was. But yeah, we'll get into the whole thing with Orson Welles and Mankiewicz at the end of the review, like it happened at the end of the movie, and he was right. So nitpicks, Michael. For me, Mank was not as old as Gary Oldman.
That's a good one, actually. I did think about that. The fact, because I was kind of thinking about how like obviously the film's set during two different periods, and I was kind of thinking like, I guess they're not that far apart. But then I thought to myself, hold on a minute, Gary Oldman's. I mean, the clue's in the name. Like he played Churchill.
In the name. The clue.
He's an old man.
The clue is in the name. Yes,
he's finally grown into it.
Gary Oldman is precisely 63 years old, so he would have been about 61 or 62 when this was filmed.
So he's literally older than this guy was when he died.
Yes, exactly. And of course, he's playing a man who's 20 years younger, and that can work sometimes. Sometimes it's fine and it's not an issue if that actor looks 20 years younger, but he doesn't. In fact, because some of the scenes are set in the early 1930s, he's playing a character that was literally half his age at some points in the filming.
I think, controversial take, Mank should have been played by Robert De Niro.
You know what? Have you seen what Herman J. Mankiewicz looks like?
I did see him.
He doesn't look anything like Gary Oldman.
Yeah, I actually, to be honest, I also don't think the guy who I've literally forgotten his name. William Randolph Hearst looks that much like Charles Dance. I hate to say it.
Wow. So Yeah, who cares about William Randolph Hearst though? It's not a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah, it's incredible how powerful this guy is, and just like no
one
one's
knows
heard.
him. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, no one's heard of him. I was just gonna say exactly what you just said.
Yeah, no one's heard of him. In popular culture right now. But anyway, so Shelley, obviously, the producer who shot himself, or what was he? The director?
Yeah, I think it was cinematographer.
Yes, something like that. So obviously, this guy Shelley, he gives Mank the bullets instead of the gun, because Mank obviously is like, hey, don't commit suicide, give me the gun, and he's like, you know what, I'll just give you the bullets instead. How did Mank not think that he might have more bullets? I don't know, it just seemed pretty obvious to me what was happening. It's like, well, there must be a reason why he's giving you the bullets and not the gun. It's because he's got more fucking bullets. And indeed, he did have more bullets, and indeed, he did shoot himself. So Mank, pretty smart guy. I don't know how he didn't figure that one out, to be honest with you. It was very, very obvious.
Yeah, that does make... I guess, what it probably was is he was convinced by the acting. I feel like sometimes it's like sleight of hand, like he kind of took his attention away from the gun and made him think the bullets were the only issue. And then he's like, here are the bullets. And Mank's like, he's been duped. He's like, oh yeah, the bullets are the only issue. And then when he was driving home, he kind of thought to himself, hey, wait a minute. But at that point, he was too embarrassed to turn around. He was like, you know what? At this point, I'm so embarrassed, I'd frankly rather he killed himself.
That's probably... You know what? He could have a witty line like that because he was a witty guy. Yeah, and that's... I think that's what we get into now, which is, what this movie is about. So it explains the backstory of Herman J. Mankiewicz through different stages, of his career, basically, and how he came to write Citizen Kane, one of the greatest movies ever. We keep getting flashbacks, rather like a certain other movie, which may be related to this movie in some way or another.
Yes.
What is that movie, Michael?
Flashbacks from a movie that's related to this movie.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane.
Yeah, there we go. God. You nailed it. Well done.
I was really worried for a second.
So and obviously, at the end of his, I guess, life, Citizen Kane is alone, locked up in his fucking mansion, and there's a parallel to Mank, I guess, in some ways. He's like, of course he's injured. That's why he's, and he needs attention. And of course, at the end, he manages to, have a happy life, I guess, after. I'm not sure that's implied or not, but he makes up with his wife. He sees his kids more, I guess. Yeah, and of course that differs to Citizen Kane. But yeah, there are, of course, parallels between Mank and Citizen Kane and the actual movie Citizen Kane and Mank. In this movie as well. And like Mank said, when you're doing a biopic of someone, you can only give an impression of them.
That's true. Yeah, you can't sum up an entire life in 2 hours.
Yeah, how do you do that? And this was the impression, and of course,
how meta.
Yeah, indeed, this was just an impression of Mank, and I do like the scene when where he meets William Randolph Hearst for the first time. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
scene?
when the woman's about to get burned by the engines.
Yeah,
and then the guy shows up. It's good. Yeah, I like that too.
No, yeah, it's a good scene. Clearly, he just wanders on this set and just like with his charm and his wit, just manages to become a personal, I don't know, friend or a confidant. I don't know what would you say? I guess a dancing,
a lackey.
Yeah, or a monkey.
Yes.
As he says later on, of this guy. But yeah, so William Randolph Hearst is one of the richest men in the world at the time. So let's talk about his character now, Mank.
Yes,
because he is an alcoholic who's depressed with life. But he's a brilliant writer who is
how original.
Yes, and that's literally what I was going to say. He's responsible for great works, and
I feel like that's every great writer in the world. I mean, it's like they say in that film. By Iñárritu, Birdman. It's like Edward Norton says about some guy who I don't even know. He used to leave a piece of his liver on the desk every time he wrote a play.
Yes.
So that's what all writers do. They just drink.
The thing is, it's massively cliche, but of course,
it's real.
This guy existed. And maybe the whole fucking writer who gets really drunk and who's amazing and who can spit out great movies comes from Herman J. Mankiewicz, at least in some capacity.
Maybe he sold his soul to the devil, and that's why, and it kind of created a curse, and that's why now, after that, all great writers have inherited that curse.
Yeah, by the way, we keep saying, of course, he wrote one of the greatest movies of all time, which, of course, he did, Citizen Kane. Isn't it the highest in Rotten Tomatoes?
Well, I feel like Rotten Tomatoes has several 100% films.
Yeah, but it's got the highest,
like
I think
audience.
Paddington 2
Yeah, yeah.
may have beaten it.
Well, yeah. So Paddington 2, yeah, Paddington 2 is obviously the. I think, to be honest, Mankiewicz, like, he didn't write Paddington 2, so, like, I actually, you know what, I just realized, what if, like, 60 years from now, there's a biopic about the person who wrote Paddington 2?
Just an alcoholic, yeah,
Yeah.
as well, yeah, fucking, right, yeah.
Like, sometimes I think you care more about that animated bear than you do about your own family.
Yeah, and, like, he goes off to...
I'm gonna find out who wrote it.
He goes off to fucking Peru. That's how he gets the backstory.
Simon Farnaby.
There you go. He's probably very famous in Hollywood for writing Paddington 2. But I was just going to say, we only gave Citizen Kane a 9 out of 10. Well, I did. What did you give it? Can you look that up?
You know what?
I think my conclusion was it's a very good movie, but it's not the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 9 out of 10 too. And I don't. That's the thing. Like, ultimately, yeah, it's not one of the greatest movies of all time. But I guess that's why, I guess the more diplomatic thing is to refer to it as like one of the most classic movies of all time.
Yeah, we all know
it's undeniably a classic.
We all know The Dark Knight's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Rotten. No, it's IMDb with The Dark Knight's number 4.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, the movie basically. This movie, of course, because it's about Mankiewicz and it's about him writing Citizen Kane and all the stuff he went through in the 1930s. It's, it relies on you enjoying Mank because, like we said, he's this brilliant writer who's known for his wit. If you enjoy Mank, this character, if you get along with him, if you enjoy his presence and all like the good dialogue he comes out with, then you can like this movie. Yes. And you can appreciate this even more. If you don't, you can find it very boring. That's what I was thinking. So, I don't know, were you entertained by the Mank character, Michael? Or were you just, I didn't really care about this guy? Because I was kind of in between, really.
Yeah, I think I was kind of in between. Like, on the one hand, I already compared this to The Aviator. And the thing is, like, this isn't like a film where, I guess the problem is, he's a bit like one note. Like, you compare, so obviously, like, Howard Hughes in The Aviator has all sorts going on. He's, like, eccentric, and he's a womanizer, and he's got OCD. There's all
the
sorts
best
going
traits.
On. Freemasons run the country. But yeah, like, the thing is, this guy, literally, it's just... And yeah, I kind of agree with you that, like, obviously, you can't blame a guy for living out a cliche, but it is kind of true that, like, there's only so much you can be invested in, it's this great writer, but also, he's kind of depressed and drinks a lot, even though he's an incredibly creative person, and it's like, there's only so much you can be invested in it when that's, like, his only character trait. And it's like, oh, look, he's embarrassed himself in front of everybody by getting drunk. Again. Yeah. You kind of start to feel like you're his wife. Like, oh god, he's getting drunk again.
Yeah, and he's being
imagine
sick.
How bored she must have been. Like, oh god, give it a rest, Mank.
I know, he's fucking sick all over the floor, and it's like, what a low point for him. And that inspires him to get to his fucking high point in his life.
Oh, by the way, The Dark Knight is the 3rd best film of all time.
Oh no, not the 3rd.
Above, it's moved above The Godfather Part 2.
Oh my god. What's 1 and 2?
So 1 and 2 is The Shawshank Redemption and The Godfather.
Of course, it's the Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. Naturally, yeah. God, what a great list. Right. Anyway, so I think all of this movie, it does hinge on whether you like Mank, and I'm kind of like, he's fine. Like, I enjoy some of the dialogue he says. It's mildly entertaining, I guess. That's my point of view. But I will say Gary Oldman put in a great performance, even if he was like twice the age of the guy he was portraying, and he definitely looks twice the age. Like, he looks old.
Yeah. Well, actually, also just I also thought like the other big role that he'd done, I guess, most recently before this was Churchill, who's also like an incredibly admired and respected figure, but was a massive drunkard. So he basically,
and his actual age.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that does work as well. But also, I was also thinking like about the fact that Churchill has a famous, or like, in the film Darkest Hour, has like a secretary who writes for him. And I was thinking, okay, I'm sorry. It seems like what this is trying to tell me is that Mankiewicz is Churchill. They're both just drunks who were very famous for things they did in the 1940s.
How dare you disrespect Mankiewicz by comparing him to Churchill? But
they both murdered Bengalis, presumably.
Mankiewicz didn't do that. That's the crucial difference between the two. But it is kind of weird, the similarities. Exact same time. The movies, I think, probably, of course, Mank is set over the course of like 10 years, but the main scenes take place in 1940. That's where everything springs off of. And of course, The Darkest Hour was probably 1940 as well, right?
Yeah.
So and of course you have the alcoholic and the the fucking women who write all the shit that this guy spews out of his mouth. Yes, but Mankiewicz is a better writer than Churchill. So you know what? Shout out to him for being that. And I guess his performance, Gary Oldman, even though he is old and he's a man who is old, it was good. Probably what you would expect from a guy who's one of the greatest actors ever. Anything more to say on that?
No, actually.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. We had like Anthony Hopkins and Gary Oldman.
That's true, yeah.
Both went for Best Actor this year. Both, I think Hopkins is quite a bit older than Oldman. Yeah,
and they almost gave it to a dead guy.
Yeah, I know. There's a theme for the Best Actors last year. So in 1934, let's get into the movie. So Herman and Joseph, that's his brother, of course, work at MGM under Maya, and I pinpointed this scene because it's a great scene where the camera just follows Maya as he goes through, what working at MGM entails, and then he explains to all the staff, working at MGM, we're a family,
Yes.
Yeah, and again, there's a good line from Mank, which I was, one of his better lines, which is something I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was something to the effect of, "It's not even the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen."
Yeah, I think you might say shameful, or like shameless,
maybe.
But
yeah, shameless, yeah. So something like that. But yeah, so that was a great scene I liked of like all the details surrounding old-timey Hollywood. And that's what we're talking about now. And this was kind of guaranteed to get a nomination because the Academy does love that kind of stuff. But yeah, it is, I guess, it's kind of interesting. And if you, again, are fascinated by this, it must be great to see all, the stories and the history you've read being brought to life. But yeah, in general, do you like movies about old-timey Hollywood, Michael?
I mean, I do like these, these films that have a certain antiquated charm. I've been meaning to kind of like, I've partially worked my way through some of like the old 1930s, 1940s films that were nominated for Best Picture, or won Best Picture actually. I haven't got around to the films that were just nominated yet, but I've watched like quite a few now of the films that won Best Picture at various years, and I will say they have a certain cute little charm to them. But yeah, I would say like I don't know if that even necessarily made me that much more enthused by the like watching this film, because I could pretty much already predict this was how films were made. I think the thing is there was something quite charming about like walking around the studio, and I think you had like also I guess like seeing kind of the practical effects stuff. Like we already kind of mentioned the scene where he meets William Randolph Hearst before, but like the scene where they have like the track and they like are doing the with like the smoke and the cowboys running along on the horses. And yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of fun to be reminded of like how they used to make movies, and I like that aspect. But yeah,
it's cute, isn't it? It's cute.
Yeah,
and that's where I am. I'm not like enthralled by it. I bet there was some people watching who saw like fucking Maya, who of course his name is literally in MGM. Yeah. Like Maya just walking down the lot and just talking to Mank and his brother about what working at MGM entails, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is incredible! This being brought to life," And again, I guess a lot of people from the Academy would have appreciated that as well, which is why, hey, surprise, surprise, he got 10 nominations for at the Academy Awards. But one aspect I really did appreciate was, I guess, because it's just interesting, is like the historical scenes. Obviously, the scenes where they talk about what's happening in the present day, but of course is related to history, which is Hitler and the Nazis. And
you liked Hitler.
Sorry,
you liked Hitler.
I liked Hitler
as an aspect in this film.
Yes.
You really loved Hitler as an aspect in this film.
As an aspect in the film, yes. So you have, I think it is William Randolph Hearst saying, "Oh, Hitler won't be in power for long. Nobody takes him seriously." And again, it was like that thing with the Picasso line, where somebody always has to say that. But again, I guess
yes,
Hitler was unique, maybe apart from Mussolini, and he was clearly crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Mussolini didn't kill as many people, bless him.
Yes. Well, the thing is, like, Amanda Seyfried's character, Marion, says, "Oh, he gives me the heebie-jeebies or the creeps when I see him."
Yeah.
And, that is true. But the thing is, apparently Germans were captivated by his speeches, which I've never really gotten, because...
because he didn't seem that charming.
No, he just sounded mad. He didn't seem charismatic at all.
Yeah, well, I feel like it was more like, I mean, I know this is going to be a real epic comparison, but, like, obviously there's the fact that Donald Trump, I know, I'm just such a
But nobody says, "Oh, Donald Trump was charismatic."
Yeah, I know, but I feel like what will happen though, this is what I kind of think, like people looking back like, because I think like the idea that Hitler was charismatic, I think it's not actually true. Like, I think Hitler was just like angry and like spoke to people in the same way that Trump was just like angry and spoke to people. But I feel like in the future people will look back and they'll be like, oh yeah, Donald Trump was really charismatic. That's why. Like I bet people like half a century from now will look back and say like describe Donald Trump as like charismatic.
Yeah, all Trump was doing was, well, he was very effective at it because maybe he was the same. Like the right-wing reactionaries in America, they have, I guess, the id, like the central part of the ego. And
yes.
whenever he did his speeches, he was speaking to that, just getting rid of all the other bullshit. And of course, that appeals to people massively on an emotional level, not really down to charisma so much. Maybe the same was Hitler, I don't know. I just see him in those fucking videos going, diving, shiving, diving. And it just doesn't get me worked up. Sorry, I'm not ready to join the Nazis. But yeah, I do like that history scene because it's always interesting. And who knows how accurate it was. Just, these major historical events, Hitler, how did people react in the 1930s to Hitler? How were they reacting to Hitler? I mean, and you had fucking Maya, who's of course Jewish, saying that they should still show pictures in Germany, even with the Nazis, because hey, it's a big market and all of that. And he also says, I just like that line, of course, because I also like this line: Upton Sinclair will be as bad as Hitler. Remember?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. And they like they had the whole conversation about like socialist Nazi, socialist communist, and like that was at the dinner table. Yeah. Well, not dinner table, it was at the in the lounge.
Yeah, a very centrist take.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yes. I like how he was like, like he's a socialist, not a communist.
Yeah. So that was fucking Mankiewicz. Yeah, Mank.
Yeah.
Mank was a socialist apparently. Well, that's what this movie portrays because of course there's talk about Hitler, which I enjoyed just because we're interested in history.
It's actually called National Socialism. I don't know if you ever realised that.
It is. I apologise, but yeah. So then we go on to talk about Upton Sinclair, and there's a major role in this movie featuring Upton Sinclair, which I was pleasantly surprised with. I was like, oh, but I guess Mank maybe in real life actually cared a lot about this and hated that the studios went against Upton Sinclair.
This was the most interesting thing in the film.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I don't know. Well, okay, maybe not exactly. Like the thing is, like
no, it's fine if you think that. I think it definitely was one of the most interesting aspects of the movie, but I don't think it's the most. But yeah, I guess because we're just into this kind of stuff more. You had heard of Upton Sinclair, right?
Yes, I had. Yeah. But no, I mean, yeah. So when I say, I mean, obviously you could kind of say, like, I guess, maybe you could argue like artistically some, but like I feel like in terms of the plot, this was the thing that I was kind of like more interested in because I was like, oh yeah, like seeing how like the big meat, like in a way I kind of almost felt like in my head I was like, man, I almost would rather this was an Upton Sinclair biopic.
Oh, I've often thought there should be a movie based around Upton Sinclair.
Do you think he should be played by Bill Nye like he was in this film?
Yes, absolutely.
The science guy, the socialism guy.
They should call it the epic story of Upton Sinclair.
They should call it Upton Sinclair Saves the World.
Yeah, but the epic because that's his whole thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you. Yeah, because Bill Nye's epic.
Yeah, do you know what epic stands for?
No,
it's very simple.
Every person is crazy.
End poverty.
Oh, in California.
In California.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, I got you. Yeah. No, yeah, and that's actually did he say like was that part of his branding saying epic?
Yeah, that's literally that was his fucking slogan.
Oh, because I knew that like end poverty, like I knew it was like the end poverty in California campaign, but I never really made that association of how good of a. See, the thing is, like I associate epic. I know I shouldn't because like people were using epic like back in the movie days, like they were always like it's an epic film, but like in my head when I think of epic, I just think of like people playing Call of Duty being like, oh man, that was epic.
Really? Fucking Call of Duty, yeah. No, you can't think of anything more normie than that. No, it has to be Call of Duty, yeah.
Yeah, I also think of Epic Movie, the film.
Oh yeah, that's great. But yeah, so Epic, Upton Sinclair, all that stuff is very interesting. Again, it's very interesting to me. And it really is a movie of like how interested you are in this subject, how much you get out of it. And yeah, fucking Upton Sinclair, fascinating story. And I knew beforehand about the movie studios successfully stopping him from becoming governor of California.
Yes.
As seen in this movie, MGM wanting everyone to donate against him, threatening to move the studio to Florida if he becomes governor. Those good old tactics. And yeah, and again, a really interesting plot thread involving Mank is how they created these newsreels against Upton Sinclair. You had the black person and the Russians saying Upton Sinclair, is who you got to vote for. Obviously, the black person is rather, restrained. Well, I mean restrained. He just speaks like in a normal way. and he's a normal voter, but of course he's black. So
Yeah, no, yeah. To be honest, like I don't want to brag about how not racist I am, but for a second I was like, oh, this seems like a very even-handed and fair piece of news coverage they're doing. They're showing the people who vote for Upton Sinclair and the people who don't. And then like kind of like a little bit later, like after it became clear it was actually biased against him, and I kind of like thought, and I was like, oh, he's black.
No, see, as soon as I saw, because I don't think you see his voice first. I think you, sorry, you don't see him first. I think you hear his voice first. So I was
And
like,
you know
oh.
immediately from his voice.
No, I was like, okay, maybe it is a balanced newsreel, and I don't know why Mank is seeing this necessarily. But then I saw he was black, and I was like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah,
so
you immediately made that association.
Yes. So no, I just know the fucking
Yeah,
reactionary
racism of Republicans.
Yeah, the racist tactics of Republicans. Sorry, I'm just an expert when it comes to that.
Yeah. Do you know what? Have you seen the Key and Peele sketch like Dad's Hollywood Secret, where it's revealed?
I literally have referenced that recently.
Yeah, I thought you had referenced it, but I didn't want to. Yeah, okay. Like I just I can't. I mean, I was just thinking like I imagine if it would have been like if the black guy would have spoken like that. Like I do be voting for Upton Sinclair, just because that would have been funny.
Yeah, but the Russian guy, I mean, who knows if he was even Russian? That'd be fun if the actor they got wasn't Russian.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, that would be like if he would have seen him as like kind of like later on, he would have like, hey, I saw you in that film. He'd be like, yeah, sure, I was in that film. I played the Russian.
Yeah. So Upton Sinclair, that's who you got to vote for if you're Russian or black. And showing Mank and asking him whether it's good or not, and of course he eventually commits suicide, and Mank is very upset about what happens to fucking Upton Sinclair. And the thing is, you don't really get into the politics of Mank. I don't really know how involved he was.
Yeah, he kind of like I wrote that he's the original black-pilled socialist. Like, because I kind of think about it, I was like, oh my god, like it kind of just I get the impression like he's just somebody who's just like watching the world being crap, and I was like, that's basically every socialist now. Yes.
As it happened in 1934, it will happen in 2024 and 2030.
Yeah, I felt like basically everyone was like in the early 20th century, everyone was really excited because they're like, oh yeah, there's revolutions happening all over the place, and then I feel like this is basically the origin story for the black pill.
Yeah, no, but so, again, I don't know how much. It was interesting, and maybe Mank didn't have as big a role to play. I didn't care as much about Upton Sinclair, but you can include it in the movie. I find it interesting, so that gives me. I give the movie the props for that. So I do like how this getting off the politics, because that's what this movie does. Then we really ramp up the scariness of going up against William Randolph Hearst.
Yes,
I think it's captured quite well.
Actually, before we move on from the politics, I just realized there's something I wanted to mention because this is a good time to mention it. It should be worth mentioned that
a good time to mention it was
the cinematography guy. The cinematography guy didn't actually kill himself in real life.
Oh yes, that's crucial.
Yeah, and I just think because obviously you mentioned that would have been a good time to mention it when you literally mentioned that he killed himself. But yeah, I found that kind of funny because obviously like it's one of like the dramatic things that happened in the film, and it's kind of like an example of how like I think obviously I was saying that maybe like they were like, hey, we've got to make a film about Citizen Kane, but then like the question becomes, well, actually how interesting is the story? And I guess this kind of partially answers that question by saying like, well, not so interesting that we didn't feel the need to include a completely made up storyline about this guy killing himself. Which obviously I'm not necessarily knocking the film. Like you can just throw stuff in just to spice things up, but it does definitely communicate the fact that was they had to make stuff up. Obviously it's quite a significant thing, to be honest, actually, especially when they like have the funeral and then it turns out actually the funeral was for like the studio executive guy. But for a minute I thought the funeral was going to be for the suicide guy, and I was like, they're really milking this considering that it didn't happen.
Yeah, I know. But
yeah.
I think that is true. But anyway, back to the scariness of going up against William Randolph Hearst. I like the scene where his brother tries to bribe him to get him off writing for Orson Welles.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's fun because it's, I was wondering, does no one know about him writing this? And then it's like, no, his brother does know, and that's why I was like, oh, that's a nice twist, that's good. And yeah, everyone is so scared of William Randolph Hearst, and again, it just adds to the legend about him. And of course, his brother actually drives up to the fucking cabin that he's staying in
to be like, hey, you don't want to mess with these people. They're serious business.
I mean, he doesn't sound at all like that.
I know.
Indeed, he said that he didn't get his promotion because he spoke French. Remember?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like as far from that person as possible, but well done anyway.
Hey, I'm proper cultured, I like to speak French. No, but yeah, I agree with you that like they really do kind of show a good job of that aspect, threat, and I think Yeah, also I think like it was kind of good casting with Charles Dance because of course, as you know, as a massive Game of Thrones fan, Charles Dance plays Tywin Lannister, who is like kind of this super, basically a Sigma male. Like he's the kind of guy who's like always in Game of Thrones. Like his character is the kind of guy who's like always in control, but he's like not physically powerful. Like obviously he's an old guy, but like his influence and his authority means that like you don't want to get on his bad side. So I feel like having watched Game of Thrones, I was like, oh yeah, this is like basically the same character as Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, it'd be a real shame if he didn't become an actor with his name and his,
I know, yeah,
and his face. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, so of course, Michael, of course, we need to get into how this movie was conceived in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually,
Because-
I wanted to say something just quickly related to the William Randolph Hearst
Oh
thing,
my god, you ever fucking...
which is that like they also do, and I wanted to say this because it's another dimension. They also have like the idea of like guilt tripping him about his about Amanda Seyfried. I can't remember her actual name because obviously like Seafood, thank you. Because yeah, like obviously part of it is like the fear of like, hey, you're going up against the establishment, but then there's kind of another thing, and I sort of found this interesting. They also had this idea of, oh, also, this woman is being kind of like caught up in the crossfire here. And I just thought that was kind of like an interesting kind of
Well, I was going to get onto
emotional
that.
complexity. Oh, were you?
Yeah. But so thanks for butting
Well,
in
maybe
there.
I'll just stop interrupting then.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. But anyway, so yeah, I do find it fascinating how this movie was conceived. Because, this part of the movie, right, we're about an hour and a half in, really gets into, the actual motivation, because you've seen all the backstory, why, and now he's writing it. And I think it's a good time to reflect on, like, is it a good idea to make movies
About movies.
about movies, how movies came to exist? And I think, yes, I am always advocating for screenplays to be written about, screenplays, I guess. I did with Titanic, for instance, of course. That was inherently fascinating, I think. And I don't know, I think, like, these, obviously, Citizen Kane was a big cultural event, as was, say, Titanic, or another big movie like, say, Star Wars.
Yeah, so maybe you should. I would like. Would you say that a film about Titanic would be like your passion project? Like, if you got a blank check to come up with a film, would you be like, we have to hear the story of how Titanic was made?
Not really. I'm just saying it because we reviewed it recently, and it kind of adds to my point here.
Yeah,
that's all. But that's the thing. These films or biopics or like historical events. They're big cultural moments, so they get movies. Well, movies are also big cultural events, so why shouldn't they get movies? It's inherently interesting and it's a great story, like Titanic. Then yeah, sure, make a movie about the making of Titanic. Make a movie about the making of Citizen Kane. It is an interesting story, certainly, considering the fucking personal relationship Mankiewicz had with William Randolph Hearst, and then of course the fact that he had this battle with Orson Welles about who should get the credit for the movie. And of course, it's an incredibly famous movie. Some say the greatest of all time, like we said. So yeah, of course, you should make a movie about this. It is inherently interesting, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. It's so interesting to go back and this massive cultural event and Citizen Kane, how he got his inspiration to write it, and the actual process of writing. I don't know if the 200 pages in 13 days was accurate, but I'm really missing the Wikipedia accurate thing, by the way. I really am missing that.
So they don't have that anymore.
I mean, not for small movies.
Because sometimes, obviously, I guess they still have it for Braveheart and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why they don't have it, but I
you
would
agree with me. Making movies about movies is fine and should be done as long as the story is interesting.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything in principle wrong with it. I guess obviously the only issue can emerge when there might be like a sense of like kind of, I guess, obligation, or like a sense of like, well, we should make a movie about this. And I guess the thing is, it's one of those things where like Hollywood so easily could just like be like, oh yeah, let's what else we got? Let's see, let's check the IMDb top 250. Hey, have they made a film about fucking The Dark Knight? Let's see how The Dark Knight was made.
That's why I said it has to be interesting.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight. It's a sequel first and foremost. And I guess so you'd have to do it about Batman Begins, or the whole Dark Knight trilogy. And again, we went through it when we reviewed Batman Begins. It's like, well, Warner Brothers wanted to go in a new direction. Christopher Nolan was excited about the project, and then he hired some really good actors.
Yeah. I think the idea of like biopics about, because obviously the other thing to bear in mind is that biopics about directors is another thing, because obviously, and you can kind of center that around a particular film if you were so inclined. But obviously, because I think, for example, there's lots of interesting directors who are, really eccentric personalities, and it would actually be cool to see films about them. Like, is there even an Alfred Hitchcock biopic? You would think so, but then you'd be like, well, is there a particular film that should be the center of it? Maybe not, because he did like quite a few films. But yeah, so I think there's kind of that aspect to it as well. Like, one of the reasons why you might want to make a film about a film is because you might want to make a film about a director. And if you're making a film about a director, maybe you'd be like, hey, let's make this film about a director about a particular thing. So if you wanted to make a film about, I don't know, Ralph Bakshi, you probably wouldn't make a film about the 1978 Lord of the Rings film, but you'd probably make a film about like his whole style and like how he introduced the idea of rotoscoping and all that jazz.
Yes, but the story has to be interesting. That's the crucial thing. And the fact that
are you implying rotoscoping isn't interesting?
Yes, yeah, fucking hell. And the betrayal of William Randolph Hearst, he's friends with him, and then he goes against him and makes this greatest movie just mocking him. That's fucking great. So that you have to have a story like this. So, yeah, that's crucial. It can't just be a famous movie or whatever, or a famous director. The story has to be there, and it is in this case.
Yeah, well, you're touching on something which I just want to say is like a positive, because a lot of the time whenever we do like a film about a real life event or real life person, one of the things I always give it credit for is saying, hey, it can also be educational. Like, you can actually watch a film about a thing that happened and find out about something you didn't know. And in that case, this definitely applies here. You can actually learn about Citizen Kane, like, especially, obviously, as you kind of already said, like, lots of people nowadays, even though William Randolph Hearst was incredibly famous at the time, don't even know about him. So yeah, actually, if you're going to show, like, just your average kind of modern day person, Citizen Kane, hey, maybe you want to show them Mank too.
Yes. So Amanda Seyfried now, Michael, who is, of course, Marion. That character, some said, well, so they accused Mank of course, in Citizen Kane, there's this character who is a female who's meant to be an opera star, but isn't. And of course, he had a friendship with Marion, and is that character based on Marion? Imagine doing that, like betraying her like that. But of course, he says the character has nothing to do with her. But I think it'd be foolish. I mean, that's blatantly not true. Like, where did he get the inspiration for this character? Like, it's definitely Marion. Yeah, I love that people speculated at the time that Rosebud is William Randolph Hearst's pet name for Marion's
vagina.
Yeah, vagina. Yeah, that's
who do they think he is? Amy Schumer?
Yeah, that is something that we discussed, I think, when we reviewed Citizen Kane. Yeah, and I think I was like, oh, that must be painful for William Randolph Hearst. Oh god, this movie really stuck the knife in, really. Even that which he had, of course, which apparently, according to this movie, was blatantly untrue. But yeah, he really stuck it to Randolph Hearst so badly, so badly. But even Marion kind of as well. And again, when Marion comes to meet him, it's it's fascinating to see if it plays out, and it's really good. I will say, the complexity of their situation. What would you say?
Yeah, I like that aspect, and I do think it, obviously, like I say, I kind of already said when I jumped the gun, there is like that kind of moral complexity to it, and it kind of, I guess it's more interesting, like your hero George R.R. Martin once said, true drama is the human heart in conflict with itself. And obviously with Mank, you could say, obviously, when he's just going up against the evil, tyrannical Randolph Hearst,
it's easy.
There's no like kind of debate there, really. It's just like, you should just do it. But when he's actually like putting somebody who has been shown as like a sympathetic character kind of in the firing line by using her as like by bringing her into it, there is that objectionable thing here. And I do kind of like the idea of like almost getting to like, is Mankiewicz a bit of a jerk, kind of? And I was kind of like, even when like kind of William Randolph Hearst does that whole, I'm going to call him Charles Dance because it's much quicker. When he like walks him out of when he tells him the organ grinder's monkey story, like you kind of get the impression that like there's a sense in which Charles Dance has a little bit of like kind of righteous indignation to him, where he's like, hey, you're just being a jerk, leave me alone.
And it is interesting to see, this character being a prick, basically. That is inherently interesting. Yeah. So no, that's good. That you like that bit of character, I guess, introspection in the movie. So I want to talk about, bridging off of Amanda Seyfried's character Marion. The gals don't really talk a lot in this movie, and I remember the honest trailers on this made a joke about that. It's like fucking Mank is just saying his opinions to all these girls, and they're just all nodding along. Like one of them's recording. His wife is like, I put up with everything you do because I love you, because you're so brilliant. And did you really get invested in the character drama regarding the assistant to Mank, who whether her husband is dead or not? Like, they pay so little attention to it for such a big thing. Then at the movie, it's like, oh, my husband's alive. And when she was reading the letter, I was like, oh, it must be something to do with Citizen Kane. or not. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I forgot her husband was almost dead. You know, they pay so little attention to that, don't they?
No, yeah, actually, you're right. Yeah, like, and to be honest, it's sort of almost, it's one of those things where like there's so little attention to it. It's almost like, I mean, this is kind of obvious thing to say. Actually, it should have just not been there at all. Like, it's not just
Yes.
like either give it proper attention and work on it, or just drop it, because right now it kind of comes across as just like they're trying to add this extra thing to it. And to be honest, like the whole, like, it's kind of weird because I mean, even just generally like her presence there, I just like she does feel, considering how much she's in the film, she doesn't leave that much of an impression.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing. You have to give her something, otherwise she's just like a boring female character. But then you can't just give her absolutely nothing apart from like, my husband may have died. Oh no, he's not dead. He's alive. Right at the end of the movie, it just feels like the gals really don't get their time to shine here in this movie, which it's it is what it is, I guess. In the 30s and 40s, probably that was the case. But anyway, it's just funny to point that out. So let's talk about Hearst, Michael. William Randolph Hearst. Shit, no. Let's not talk about him. Let's talk about Orson Welles. I'm sorry, I got them confused.
I was a bit confused. Let's talk about Orson Welles.
So he, of course, wants to do a rewrite without Herman, and he visits Herman and offers him a buyout. However, of course, Herman requests credit for the script, declaring it his greatest work. Then Wells tells Herman that he's gone to bat for him before leaving angry, and then he, of course, ultimately receives joint credit with Wells. They win the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for the film 2 years later. Now, I find it interesting, that conflict, and it's probably the most interesting conflict in the movie, because, of course, it's well known, the battle between Orson Welles and Herman J. Mankiewicz, who actually wrote Citizen Kane, maybe the greatest movie ever. But the thing is, it does suddenly happen right at the end of the movie, and there's not a lot of build-up to it. I think more time spent on this, perhaps, would be better, because it is a very famous dispute, and it seems to resolve itself quite quickly, and that may be something that would go on, because they have the actual audio from when Orson Welles was in Rio de Janeiro, which is fascinating. But so I think they should spend more time on it.
I agree with you. Like, that's something which is actually there, and obviously, like, Orson Welles is very famous. It kind of feels like it's a bit weird to have the decision to just have Orson Welles, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I put it as a nitpick in a way. Even though it wasn't really a nitpick. Let's be real here. But just having him be like this kind of almost background character rather than, and obviously you could say, well, the fact he's not involved is kind of the point, but you just feel like he has to be involved in some more substantial way in order, because he just feels like this kind of random guy who just shows up and it's just like, and they have this big argument. It's like, okay, well, this film really hasn't been about their relationship, honestly.
Yeah, no, it hasn't, and I think it'd be better if it was more about their relationship. But sadly, that is not the case. And that's a shame. I'm looking, by the way, in terms of Citizen Kane, the whole screenplay thing.
There's a Wikipedia article for it.
Yeah, one of the long-standing there literally is on its own. So one of the long-standing controversies about Citizen Kane has been the authorship of the screenplay. Wells conceived the project with Herman J. Mankiewicz, who was writing radio plays for Wells' CBS radio series The Campbell Playhouse. Mankiewicz based the original outline of the life of William Randolph Hearst, who he knew socially and came to hate after being exiled from Hearst's circle. Again, that's this movie. So basically, it just goes in, and there was a large debate between like the Writers Guild and Orson Welles, who deserves most of the credit. And I guess it says here questions of the authorship of the Kane screenplay were revived in 1971. It went into the ensuing controversy. Wells was defended by colleagues, critics, but his reputation was damaged by its charges. The essay's thesis was later questioned, and some of Cale's findings were contested in later years. That damaged that damaged Orson Welles in terms of writing of Citizen Kane. And it's always been a debate, like who had the biggest role to play. And again, that's why I think it's fascinating, and you could have put more into that. But this movie firmly is on the side of Herman J. Mankiewicz, isn't it, Michael?
No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I guess, it kind of tells you in the name that, they do need to make a film called Wells. All's Wells that ends Wells.
Wells is the one giving constant feedback to Mankiewicz on what the movie should be.
Yeah, and Mankiewicz just randomly shows up, at the end. And you can actually have a scene where Mankiewicz starts trashing the room, and Wells gets the inspiration for the idea of a room trash.
Yeah, even the room trash was Mankiewicz' creation.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, like I actually see. I kind of, it's a bit weird. See that line I mentioned there, because I find it like when it came across, I kind of found it a bit like that seems a bit silly to me. But also, it creates a question of like, if he only wrote that scene then, and Orson Welles is really angry about it, you kind of think like, you know, obviously I think that was a completely made up thing, but I just like to imagine that in the actual like Citizen Kane, when Orson Welles is doing that, he's kind of like doing it begrudgingly, like he's doing the room trashing scene begrudgingly. Like, just I can't believe I'm only doing this because I did it in front of Mankiewicz.
Yeah, that'd be funny. But anyway, just to end on this, many current academics and critics were sparked to action by Mank's many times over debunked premise that the script was Mankiewicz's alone, including New York Times writer Ben Kennisberg and Jonathan Rosenbaum, editor of the Wells Bogdanovich book This Is Orson Welles, who wrote Fincher's senior and junior, so David, and what was the dad called again? Mark? Help me out here, Mark.
David? No, that's the original, sorry.
Jack,
yeah.
Yes, Jack Fincher. Yeah, so Jack Fincher was very much against Orson Welles. So Fincher's senior and junior, Jack and David, willingly and eager to accept and further spread Keel's inaccurate assertion that Herman J. Mankiewicz was the only screenwriter on Citizen Kane, not bothering to research the matter. Mank producer Eric Roth reportedly polished the script prior to filming, with David Fincher saying he felt early drafts were too anti-Welles. Okay, so yeah, Jack Fincher really had it in for Orson Welles. When asked about the controversy surrounding authorship, Fincher stated that his movie does not aim to settle the issue. It was not my interest to make a movie about a posthumous credit arbitration. Well, you kind of fucking did. I mean, that's the whole fucking idea. Like, Mankiewicz is fucking written all of it at the end. I don't know how you can say that. I was interested in making a movie about a man who agreed not to take any credit and then who changed his mind. That was interesting to me. Well, again, who not to take any credit implies and then change his mind. It implies that, oh no, he should have taken credit because the credit was rightfully his.
Yeah.
Because you don't think when he's asking, oh, can I take credit? You don't think, wow, what a dick. You think, yeah, of course he should take credit because he wrote the fucking thing. So it seems to me very biased, and maybe it's against Orson Welles to a large extent.
Yeah.
Like you said, you joked about it, but maybe we need a fucking Orson Welles biopic called like Well, that goes into how he actually wrote, or he helped Mankiewicz write Citizen Kane. But anyway, Michael, time for conclusions. You go first.
Yeah. Okay. This film is a film that was made by people. No, it is good. It's well made. There are interesting things about it. The kind of stylistic decisions are good. The way that the like backflashing flashbacks are handled is good. Like, you know, I think it wasn't like confusing. And overall, yeah, actually, like the, you know, when it does touch on the kind of history and context of why he made it, that's really interesting, looking at kind of the political situation at the time, and also that kind of moral dilemma about should he publish it? Is he being a real knob to publish it? A very interesting question. However, I think the issues, I think the main issue is kind of just like how kind of unremarkable and I guess like messy all of the present day stuff is, like all the stuff actually set in the 1940s. Obviously the secretary or assistant is completely just one note, and the attempt to give her some character and like something else to her just completely just fails. Orson Welles randomly showing up in this kind of like controversy that could have been more substantial isn't. Like, I guess they kind of focus more on his inspiration for writing it rather than the actual writing of it itself and the controversy around that. And I think that kind of makes half the film, or, you know, probably not even half the film, because anything even makes up, you know,
can we have a rating, please, Michael?
Yes, I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to give it seven. Just seven. Regular great. 7.
Yeah, you know what? I'm also going to give it a 7, Michael. We agree. 7 out of 10. Yeah. Again, I think, you know, the structure is fine. You know, it's paralleling it to, of course, Citizen Kane. Quite a biased ending with who it supports in this debate. But again, if you get into the debate further, that'd be, I think, more interesting. But again, there are some interesting parts. The Nazis, Upton Sinclair, but that's just because we, I think, appreciate that. And yeah, if you don't like that kind of stuff and you're not interested, you won't like it. And if you don't really, you know, if you're not interested in 1930s Hollywood, then you probably won't like this either. You know, it's a movie that relies a lot on your tastes, I feel like. So yeah, and like I said, some stuff I like and I enjoy, some stuff I don't so much. And yeah, I kind of like the character of Herman J. Mankiewicz, even though Gary Oldman does a great job. So overall, it's a 7 out of 10. It's fine. But anyway, Michael, what are we doing next week?
Well, next week we're doing a film that was also nominated for Best Picture, of course, and won Best Original Screenplay.
Promising
That
Young
film
Woman.
is Promising Young Woman.
Yes, indeed. So join us for that next week. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening to our Mank review, and goodbye.
Goodbye.